Welcome back to Reese's Side Quests for another coin video. Today I'm going to be reviewing my entire collection of slabbed coins. Now, a coin in a slab has a few benefits, and the first being obviously that you can basically just kind of set it on surfaces, not worry about the coin being scratched. You can handle it with your bare hands and not worry about the coin being oxidized by your sweat. So it makes the coins a lot more handleable. These cases or slabs that they are encased in are largely airtight, so there is a significant benefit in terms of conservation to having high-end coins slabbed in this way. In this collection here, I largely have coins slabbed by two different companies. None of these I've had done myself. I bought all of these already slabbed. And that is PCGS, which you'll see with this blue label here, and NGC, which you'll see with these brown label or this Panda Special Edition label as well here. And I think that I have here a very unique variety of coins in my slabbed collection. So today I'm going to be reviewing them one by one and showing you basically a full tour of my collection and hopefully setting the groundwork for what I want out of a future collection that I hope to be museum quality. So first up here we have a Chinese 2014 1-ounce silver panda. And this is China's normal bullion silver coin. It has this panda design on it. They change it somewhat from year to year, but largely every year they do issue them with the panda. It contains 1 troy ounce of pure 999 silver, and on the reverse it features the Temple of Heaven, which is in Beijing, that I've actually been to, which is part of the reason I got the coin, because I really liked this design. And this is technically legal currency in China, worth 10 yuan, but the silver value is well above that. This is a 1931 silver 5 lati coin from Latvia, and it has a silver purity of 0.835 and weighs a total of 25 grams. The design on the obverse is supposed to be just a generic traditional Latvian maiden, and then the reverse features the Latvian coat of arms. This is an 1884 New Orleans mint Morgan US dollar, known as the Morgan dollar, named after the person who designed the engraving of the front. This is one of the most iconic coins in US coin history, and I am also a big fan of it, so I acquired this relatively common date of the Morgan so I could have an example in mint state. I am not particularly keen on collecting extremely high rarity Morgan dollars. It's just not really my thing to spend money on. I prefer world silver, as you'll see from the rest of this collection for the most part. But I do love the Morgan design. It's just a classic, and I do have a collection of cool quality Morgans as well. But this design represents Lady Liberty, and it was largely before there was ever any presidents featured on the coins at all. This is a coin from 1790 known as a Do-It, and you might recognize this kind of infamous logo on the back, and that is from the Dutch East India Company, the VOC. And this was a penny-like coin, basically a small copper that was issued to some of their colonies, such as New York. And so it's kind of known as a New York penny. So I collected it for that reason. I do live in New York, and you can find these in cleaned, genuine slab condition for relatively cheap. For your reference, a general slab, if you're to send in a coin on its own, is going to cost you like between $40 and $100 depending on what the coin is and what you need done to it in terms of any kind of conservation work. So when you find a coin that's slabbed and only costing around that $30 to $40 range, if it's a piece that you really like, it might be worth it to get that, locked into a slab and have it in your collection. And that was the case with this. This coin is a bit of an outlier in my collection in that it's the only one from West Asia This is from medieval Iran, from a region known as Tabaristan, which is actually the northern end of Iran, which kind of doesn't really get a lot of, like, publicity, I guess, because it does look climatically a lot different from the rest of Iran. It's not as, like, desert-like. It's quite lush, actually. It's right on the coast of the Caspian Sea, and because the weather patterns are basically blocked off by the Alborz Mountains that are there between Tabaristan and then where Tehran is, this area of Tabaristan gets a lot of nice rain and stuff compared to the rest of the country. So there was a lot of, like, ancient and medieval societies that were able to set up there and live pretty well. And this is a great example of their coinage, which is based on the earlier Sasanian designs, which is pretty interesting. You can see the reverse as well features the fire altar, which I believe is a building that still exists in modern-day Tabaristan. So that's pretty fascinating as well. I really like the design on this and just how distinctive it looks, as well as the quality. This was found in a small coin hoard along an old Silk Road path, and so it's in very, very good condition, graded as AU, almost uncirculated, even though it's from 780 AD. One mini collection that I've started is that of 8 Real coins. These really fascinate me because they're what's known as the piece of 8 in, your pirate media. And it was a colonially issued coin from Spain to the Spanish colonies. This one was made in Peru, or at least issued to Peru. And so this was basically the historical phenomenon when the Spanish colonies were found to have a ton of silver in places like the Potosi mine. And so the Spanish suddenly had a ton of silver. They started issuing these coins hand over foot for international trade. And you have quite a lot of examples that are left over. And I acquired this one because, if you can see in this lighting here, it's countermarked. And this was actually, as far as I could tell online, this countermark is sourced from a testing stamp of a jeweler based in Connecticut, which is pretty interesting if correct, because that would mean it traveled pretty far from Peru to Connecticut. So you can see the front here, the obverse has King Ferdinand the 7th of Spain, and then you also have the reverse with the classic pillar and shield design as well. So I really like the condition of this one. Obviously it's going to be details because of the stamping that's happening on there, but that's pretty cool. I mean, I love a unique stamped coin like that. Here's a second 8 Real coin that I have, a little bit older. This one is from 1787 and was minted in Mexico City. You can see that very striking white blast shine on it, and unfortunately that is actually from a restoration, not an original shine, but I loved it so much that for the price point that it was at, I believe this was about $250, I thought it was beautiful, like a shelf piece. It looks like a proof almost, where that white blast is almost frosted in comparison to the background. There's a little bit of the luster. So a coin in actual, almost uncirculated condition would be about 5 times that price. So I found this as like a nice shelf piece to be, extremely good looking condition without the technical detail, without the technical grade. So if you aren't familiar with the process in terms of slabbed coins and grading, you have coins that are in pristine condition, not meaning that they're perfect looking, but that they haven't been messed with, or they haven't been intentionally restored, and they haven't been significantly damaged in some kind of way. If a coin is only worn by what's considered normal wear, it gets what's called a straight grade, where it gets a number next to the grade here, MS64. That's a very high grade. The top one possible is a 70. So when a coin has been artificially or intentionally cleaned, and it's not just left, like this one's in such good condition because it was literally in a bank bag since the 1800s and then slabbed right out of that bag. The only damage to it is scuffs from other coins bumping into it in the bag, which would detract from that 70 mark. This one, on the other hand, it doesn't get a number. It's just genuine because it has been cleaned. You can't really score it fairly against other ones when there's been tampering. So that's just a brief rundown of what it means for a straight grade, as they call the one with the number, versus a details grade, or a genuine grade, as you would call it on this. This is another 8 real in my collection. This was minted in 1783, and what makes this one interesting is it is a certified relic of a shipwreck, the El Cazador. In the year 1784, only a year after this coin had been minted, a Spanish ship was carrying about 450,000 silver coins from Mexico to Louisiana between Spain's territories, and it sank in the Gulf of Mexico. And it wasn't discovered until 1993, which allowed a lot of these coins that weren't, actually stuck together from the salt damage to be recovered, slabbed, and sold to collectors, which I'm glad for. It's really interesting to see what a coin looks like after it's spent 200 years at the bottom of the sea. Look at that salt damage. You can tell that most likely this coin here, this side, was facing downward and might have been lightly affected by the water, and this side was more exposed to the elements directly and has more overt salt damage to that metal surface. Like, that's very rough looking compared to the other side. You'll find some of these in extraordinarily good condition that might have been stuck at the bottom of the chest, but you'll also find some where the entire coin is completely illegible because of so much damage. So I like to have one that's right in the middle. This is the smallest slabbed coin that I have, and this is a kreuzer from medieval Austria, from the small town known as Hull, which I believe still exists. It's east of Innsbruck, if my research is correct, but this is actually the top quality known slabbed coin in PCGS of this type, and I find that incredibly cool because of the deal that I got for it, to have something that's really certified as the best in the world. That is another benefit of having a slabbed coin, is that all of these are stored in an online registry, so you have direct awareness and research capability of the precise rarity level of your coin and its comparison to the quality of others in the world that other people have slabbed and registered. So, of course somebody could find one, or, in their great-granddaddy's collection from Austria and hand it down, and they send it into PCGS and it beats this one. But for now, it's certified to be the best in the world, so that's very fun. Now, this last starter collection is probably my favorite, and that is of historical silver French coins. This one is from 1850, and it's from one of the first years of the existence of the French Republic as we know it. After the Revolution of 1848, which, that's not the French Revolution, that's like 3 after it. I mean, they had basically straight revolutions from the 1780s through the late 1800s, and this coin was one among that series. And that's why I find collecting the series of French coins so fascinating, is because their leadership would change basically every few years during that period, from the Bourbon to the revolutionary government to Napoleon, back to the Bourbon to the Republic, and it's just like very fascinating to see those transitions in a physical artifact. And this is one of my favorite designs. Personally, it doesn't have a king. This is the design of Ceres as a representation of liberty, and this design was actually an inspiration for the United States' Morgan dollar design. The Morgan dollar did receive some criticism at its time, which, I'm not really 100% certain if that was fair or why that necessarily was, but I think it's a very beautiful and iconic design, and so to study the legacy of it and where that design possibly came from, you can certainly see it, I believe, yeah. And this is only about 30. These were only made about 30 years apart. The first Morgan dollar was made in 1878, I believe. So much closer to each other in history than we are to either of these coins. Going back a little bit further, this is King Louis XVI, the last Bourbon King of France before the French Revolution, and this is a French écu, which is one of the most interesting, in my opinion, units of silver currency in early modern Europe, because basically it constantly would change in the weight and the silver quality from year to year. So that's really interesting to look at over time. This one has a grade of almost uncirculated 50 with a relatively weak strike, so I was able to get it for a good deal. It's not quite as crisp of details on his face there as you might have on a stronger, deeper strike. on the coin that might give it a higher relief. But the reverse, incredibly crisp. I mean, that is about as good as it gets. I would say that's uncirculated quality, just about. So this is pretty interesting because largely King Louis XVI was in power until... King Louis XVI was in power only until 1793 when he was executed. So this coin was, you know, the last of a lineage of royal écus, and after this, the French coinage would transition to the 5 franc, which you can see on the series design here. As you can see, the reverse has this 5 franc. As opposed to this is an écu. And I don't actually know if this says écu on it, but it was kind of implied. It's a large silver coin. You cannot really mistake it for anything else, but they did make these in half, quarter, fifth, tenth denominations as well. So, and this is probably the crown jewel of my collection at an almost uncirculated 55 grade. This is a French écu of King Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King. He was basically the one that popularized living out at Versailles, and the kind of lavish lifestyle that would eventually instigate the Parisians against the royals and their luxuries. So it's quite an iconic piece where it really shows his luxurious hairstyle here. And King Louis XIV was in power from the age of a child, and in this one, this was only a few years before his death, so he was an old man. He had been ruling for decades upon decades upon decades. And this coin, like, it's just dripping with regal power, in my opinion. Like, this is the early 1700s. You know, this looks like those guys working for the Europeans in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, this is quite a of the time portrait. And I think that's part of what makes this coin so iconic, because it just leaned into the absolute excesses of the time and captured that so crisply in this piece of silver. You can see the 3 crowns and then the 3 fleur-de-lis. So this is known as the 3 crowns design, as there was several different iterations of écu coins, obviously, throughout King Louis XIV's lifetime. And the écu, the large silver coin, was only really introduced in France about a generation or two before King Louis XIV. So my goal is to have a collection that stretches every single type of the French écu and the 5 franc eventually, as well as every type of the Spanish colonial 8 real, at least every different ruler on the front of them that is possible. So let me know if you have any suggestions or any favorites among my collection, and let me know what you think my next acquisition should be, or if I should start a new themed collection like my 8 real or 5 franc collections. Make sure to like and subscribe to Reese's Side Quest for more silver coin collecting content, but also quite a bit of travel, animal, memes, and a variety of other content as well. So, thanks for watching.